DC just kicked off the new year with the craziest issue of Absolute Batman to date, and that is saying something. We had several great titles drop on the very first release day of the new year, but there is none crazier than the Absolute Batman ARK M one-shot that we are going to get into today. And let me tell you something. We knew this issue was going to give us the origin of Absolute Arkham Asylum. However, it is so much more than that, but I'm not going to spoil it. Let's just get into it so you can see it unfold for yourself. All right, so the issue opens up with a series of flashbacks starting in the late 1800s and the opening of Arkham Asylum. But we simultaneously get narration that reads, "These are the writings of Dr. Amadeus Arkham. They serve as a chronicle of this infamous place that bears my name, Arkham Asylum. Yet this book is also other things. It is my confession. It holds secrets I will take with me to my grave. It's also a warning about the terrible evil I have unleashed upon the world, and a plea that you, reader, stop it before it's too late." As we see an image of Dr. Arkham holding a book that he wrote titled, "Who Was Jack the Ripper?" So right off the bat, this issue introduces a deeply ominous tone, but it's just the beginning, my friends. Because on the next page, we jump to 1945, where we find Dr. Arkham standing in his office at Arkham Asylum. He's staring at pictures he has hanging on the walls of his office, which happen to be the same images we saw on the first page. Someone then knocks on his office door, and when he answers, it's a gentleman saying, "Good day, Dr. Arkham. I'm not too early, am I?" To which Arkham replies, "It's fine. The faster we complete this process, the better." The man smiles and says, "You're not reconsidering, are you?" But Dr. Arkham reassures him saying, no, it's time. And I do believe the price reflects that and how determined I am to get a deal done. Revealing that the elderly Dr. Arkham is looking to sell his asylum. And he tells the man who's looking at a painting, "If you'll just follow me, I'll take you for a tour of the grounds." But the man responds, "I couldn't help but notice this woman. If you don't mind me asking, who is she?" And Dr. Arkham tells him, "That would be my mother. In some ways, it can be said this place began with her." We then flash back to his childhood as Amadeus continues to explain, "My first memories are of my mother standing watch at our front window, awaiting his return. Lee had surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, you see, and my father was long past due. The waiting had taken a toll on my mother. It had taken a toll on me. But this night would be different. This night, the dark silhouette of a Union soldier marched up our walk. It was him," my mother exclaimed. "After all this time, father was home. Or so we thought. We quickly realized the soldier at the door was not my father. The letter he handed my mother would explain everything," he said. And so it did. It came from the newly installed President Johnson, informing us that father had been killed at the Battle of Palmito Ranch. Ironically, a battle fought after Lee's surrender, meaning my father died in a pointless battle. It was all too much for my mother to take. The soldier, to his credit, tried to console her, but she had other ideas." We then see Amadeus's mother take the soldier's pistol from his holster and shoot him with it, followed by turning on her own children, as Dr. Arkham's narration continues to tell us, "As the soldier's blood started to pool at our doorstep, my mother looked over the faces of my siblings and proceeded to execute them one by one. But when she came to me, she paused and turned the gun on herself instead. Why she chose to spare me that day, I will never know. But the incident would shape my life. From when I first arrived at the Elliott Gotham City Orphanage as a scared little boy, to the day I emerged from its doors a confident young man with nothing more than the clothes on my back and a dream. A dream to help people like my mother. A dream to build a place where people such as her could get the care they needed, where the best science of the day would be applied to treat the mind's afflictions, so the tragedy that befell me could be prevented. A place I would call Arkham Asylum. With the money given to me by the Elliott Family Foundation, I would purchase the land where my dream would come to fruition. Cheap land with a past of its own, granted due to it being where the British kept colonial prisoners of war during the Revolution, where there was much abuse and loss of life, a place other Gothamites said was haunted from the start, soaked in blood and madness. Still, none of that mattered to me, not as long as some good could come out of it. We then see Dr. Arkham looking over his completed asylum and the early days of its work as he continues to say, "In the beginning, Arkham was everything I wanted it to be. A good facility with a full staff of like-minded individuals getting patients the help they so desperately needed. Even those patients who, with Gotham being Gotham, were a bit more in need, shall we say. My mother would be proud, I believed. That said, Arkham was not without its issues in those initial years. One issue in particular, a man so vile and heinous, I will not even utter his name. Let's call him Jack Doe for the purpose of this journal. By the time he was sent to us, Jack had murdered multiple people, men, women, children, and soon after his arrival, he killed 2 nurses and disemboweled another prisoner. He took glee in the killing. He was always laughing. a horrible grin on his face. He was the type of inmate that threatened the very existence of Arkham, and so he became the patient I was most determined to help. We then cut back to 1945 with Dr. Arkham and his potential buyer walking through the now mostly empty Arkham Asylum. The man then asks Amadeus, "So tell me, doctor, why has Arkham so clearly fallen on such hard times?" To which the doctor responds, "Fewer and fewer patients for one thing, fancier and more modern facilities sponsored by the Lazarus Corps in Metropolis and elsewhere for another. The truth is, this place would have had to close years ago, if not for the kindness of benefactors such as yourself." This surprises the man and he says, "Ha! It appears you've done your homework, doctor. I like my donations to be anonymous." Arkham replies, "Look, I'm not just going to hand this institution over to someone I know nothing about. So yes, I did my research and I appreciate your generosity. Mental health is important to you, clearly." The mystery man replies, "It is. I've seen up close the suffering caused by conditions of the mind, and I feel it's our duty to find cures so that younger generations never have to contend with them. Our children deserve a better future." He then asks, "Do you have children, doctor?" A shocked look comes over Arkham's face and he stumbles over his words as he says, "Children? No, I never had any children." However, the next page takes us back to Arkham Asylum in 1885, as we see a young boy covered in blood knocking at the asylum's door, as we get excerpts from the doctor's journal that says, "It was raining the night he arrived, covered in blood. So much blood, even the rain couldn't wash it away. How did he get that way? Whose blood was it?" We then see nurses caring for the boy and Dr. Arkham himself tucking the boy into sleep. As the narration continues, the boy claimed he did not know, but it was clear he had suffered greatly in life. An orphan raised on the streets, he was near death when I found him, and being an orphan myself, I took pity on the lad. I took him in, and eventually, in time, I took him under my wing. And this is where things get absolutely insane, but again, I'm not gonna spoil it. We're just gonna keep going. Anyway, we then see Dr. Arkham walking through the corridors of Arkham Asylum with the young boy who is now assisting him. As the narration continues to tell us, he was bright and learned quickly. More than anything, the boy was fascinated by my work and would tour the halls of Arkham with me. Perhaps it was growing among the suffering masses of Gotham, but his fascination soon became a passion. He believed in the good of this place and in me, and I dare say, with no heir of my own, I came to think of him as my own son, someone who would carry on my name and my work. "Tomorrow is a new page, father," the boy would say, no matter how bad things seemed at the asylum, a private phrase to buoy my spirits. He was ever the optimist, even when he met Jack Doe. Jack was being punished for brutalizing yet another nurse. He taunted the boy, tried to get under his skin, ever a cruel joker, but still, the boy remained undeterred. Were the likes of Jack beyond our help? I confess, I started to wonder. And one of the most interesting things that Scott Snyder has done here with this Jack Doe is he's given him the characteristics of the normal Joker we're used to from the main DC continuity. Because the absolute Joker in this universe, as we've come to know throughout this title, especially in Absolute Batman 15, is the exact opposite of the Joker in terms of characteristics that we're used to. He's very stoic, he does not smile, and he does not laugh. But this Jack Doe, on the other hand, as explained by Dr. Arkham, is always smiling and laughs while he commits horrendous crimes. Right, so jumping back to the issue, we return to the conversation between Dr. Arkham and his mystery buyer. And as we turn the page, the doctor is explaining why Jack Doe made him question whether or not patients like him could be helped. He tells us that just a couple of days after introducing Jack to the boy, he escaped from his cell and took the boy hostage, putting a knife to his throat. Dr. Arkham's narration says, "I did everything I could to talk Jack down. Thankfully, while Jack was cunning, he wasn't stupid. He knew killing the boy would result in instant death. I was just happy to get the boy back. Even as I hugged him, I knew the light in him had only been strengthened." We then go back to Arkham in 1945, where we see an orderly wheeling a patient down the hall. And the buyer asks, "You still do get patients, I see?" To which the doctor responds, "Few and far between, and with a small staff to help me at this point. But yes, we do." But the conversation takes a sudden turn as the man tells Amadeus, "I must give you credit, Dr. Arkham. Through all the ups and downs of this place, you've still managed to keep things afloat, even after the most infamous incident of all." The doctor looks down and replies, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to." But the man's demeanor takes a far more serious tone as he replies to Arkham saying, "Of course you do, doctor. As you have done your homework on me, so too have I done mine on you and this facility. So please, doctor, let's not continue to insult my intelligence and discuss the true reason this institution's reputation has suffered for decades. Tell me about the breakout." At this point, Dr. Arkham fesses up and we are taken back to 1886. As the doctor tells the man, "It was all due to a careless orderly. I had warned the fool time and time again, whatever you do not get close to the inmates. His keys were taken, his throat slashed from ear to ear with a sharpened toothbrush, and he was but the first. He, referring to Jack Doe, released a number of his fellow inmates, and they made their way down to the furnace room, deciding against confronting the armed guards at the front doors. Whatever the case, they quietly worked through the night, dug out a tunnel from behind the furnace, and just like that, they were gone. As we see a number of the craziest Arkham Asylum inmates making a mad dash into the woods. Dr. Arkham goes on to say, waking the next day to this nightmare, I knew Jack had done it. I could almost hear him laughing, that man who loved nothing more than to torch the world. It was a revelation that made my heart stop because I knew Jack. We then see Dr. Arkham running towards a room with bloodied footprints approaching the door. As he continues, I knew who he would target before making his escape. He then finds an empty bed and the teddy bear he had given to the young boy covered in blood, and he says, my son was lost to me forever. Tomorrow is a new page. That phrase of his came back to me over and over, but his story was over. We then return to 1945 as Dr. Arkham leads the man into another room while saying, I never forgave myself for the breakout and for what happened as a result. To cope, I converted an old storeroom and created this, a record of my own shame. The man then looks around the room with countless newspaper clippings that have been pinned to the walls, reporting on probably hundreds of people who had been murdered due to the escape of Arkham Asylum. Amadeus then goes on to say, the breakout was hidden from the papers to prevent panic. Sick people under Jack's tutelage twisted toward crime. There were robberies, murders. Eventually, all were brought back to this place. All except him, the man I refer to as Jack Doe, the man I have come to believe would become the world's most notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper. A man that might be more than human, but evil itself, a smiling demon, a hellish jokester. Now, two things are happening here simultaneously. First, it's insane that he is referring to this guy as Jack the Ripper, but also there is a continuous tease that this guy is somehow potentially the Joker himself. And you could make the connection. However, on the next panel, as Amadeus is continuing to make the connection between Jack the Ripper and Jack Doe, saying that the timeline fits, the man interrupts him saying, yes, doctor, I'm well aware of your works on the subject. Speaking of which, the furnace room, I'd like to see it. They then enter the furnace room and Dr. Arkham tells him, nearly 60 years ago now, and I haven't been down here since. If I'm being honest about it, I just couldn't face it. The man then looks at the brick wall between the two furnaces and says, this wall where it's rebricked, this is where they escaped from, correct? Dr. Arkham confirms, but the man then turns to another wall and says, then why is this wall rebricked as well? But again, Dr. Arkham has already said he hasn't been down there in 60 years, and he tells the man, having not been down here in ages, as I've said, it's not something I would have noticed before. The man then smirks and says, ever wonder what else you never noticed, doctor? As narration from Dr. Arkham's journal tells us, he leaned in and whispered something to me then, something that stopped me cold. But before I could respond, we then see the man walking up the stairs and leaving Dr. Arkham in the furnace room while telling him, you don't have to see me out, doctor. I love the place. And if you're like me, you now see exactly where this is going, and you're starting to connect all the dots about everything we have learned about Jack Grimm, aka Absolute Joker, throughout this entire title, especially Absolute Batman 15. And I'm going to connect those dots as we get towards the end. But on the next page, we see Dr. Arkham lying in bed saying, that night I could not sleep. I must have heard him wrong, my buyer, but part of me knew I had not. While we simultaneously see Dr. Arkham going down into the furnace room with a crowbar and the child's bear in his pocket. Dr. Arkham's narration then tells us, and so I woke and wrote these words, this desperate cry to anyone who might hear it. I shall put this journal in the post as soon as I'm done. But before I do, I will go down into the dark one more time. To prove what I already know, I shall remove the bricks and find what I know to be there. He then approaches the rebricked wall that he had not noticed before, the one that the buyer pointed out, and he begins to take it apart with the crowbar. And as he breaks it open, he looks inside and collapses in shock because he has now discovered the truth. We then see the doctor pulling the teddy bear that he had once given to the young boy out of his robe pocket and approaching the furnace as he says the horrible truth. That truth might be my legacy, but this place will not be. As he sticks the back end of the bear into the furnace, pulls it out like a torch, and lights the entire place on fire from the furnace room. We then see the remaining inmates and the staff burning alive as Arkham Asylum burns to the ground. But we then go outside where we find the buyer standing in the field with Arkham burning in the background, and he is holding Dr. Arkham's journal and reading it while it says, "And so I send this journal to you, Captain Flass of the Gotham City Police Department. I only pray it reaches you in time to stop him. The man who laughs from the dark." We then see the man smile as he turns to watch Arkham burn, but we are then taken to ARK M now in the present and the office of Jack Grimm. And we see a painting hanging on the wall of his office of the old ARK M in flames. And he's got several files and Dr. Arkham's journal on his desk as we get the last words from that journal that says, "Not Jack Doe, but him, the boy, the one I once called my son." He then goes on to confirm everything we've now pieced together by saying, "See, it was Jack Doe's body I found behind that wall, not the boy's, because it was the boy all along. The voice in Jack Doe's ear, the hand at his cell lock, the knife at his throat. For that's what the man, my buyer, whispered to me. That phrase only we two knew, the same one on the note left by Jack's body." As we see the deteriorated body of Jack Doe with a sharpened toothbrush in his neck and a note pinned to his chest that says, "Tomorrow's a new page." Arkham's journal then concludes by saying, "The boy did it all just to make a fool of me, my hopes, my beliefs. He's the monster, the one laughing in the dark, always laughing. And now he has come back to buy this place. I could see it in his eyes, the terror he will make. Instead of a place to heal the sick, a place to make monsters. You must stop him." The man called Jack Grimm. Otherwise, God have mercy on us all. Signed, Amadeus Arkham. So basically this issue, instead of just giving us the origin of the Absolute Universe's version of Arkham Asylum, which it does, it also gives us an extension of the origin of Absolute Joker. Because remember, in Absolute Batman issue 15, where Alfred gives us the first piece of Absolute Joker's origin, he explains that the first time that Jack Grimm pops up in history that he could find was in 1888. But the young boy appeared on the steps of Arkham Asylum covered in blood in 1885, and then caused the massacre and the escape from Arkham Asylum in 1886. So according to what Alfred told Bruce, it was just 2 years after the fall of Arkham that Jack Grimm appeared as a young orphan street performer in Gotham. That's right, the creepy kid in clown makeup, that's him. And it's that same Jack Grimm, along with his son, grandson, great-grandson, and so on, who would amass a ton of wealth and power over time through his entertainment empire and other business ventures. But the revelations in this ARK M issue seem to confirm Alfred's suspicion, which he reluctantly revealed to Bruce at the end of Absolute Batman 15. Basically, after laying out everything he knows about Jack Grimm's history to Bruce, and Bruce nagging him to tell him what he really thinks about Jack Grimm, what he believes, Alfred finally breaks down and says, "I believe that there is no Grimm family, all right? I believe there is no Jack the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. There's only ever been one Jack Grimm. Maybe it's just his infernal science, maybe it's some dark pact, I don't know. Maybe it's both. But I look at him and he's something terrible, Bruce. A nightmare thing that stalks the earth. Not a man who never laughs at anything, but a beast that's always laughing at us." And that sentiment from Alfred directly coincides with what Dr. Arkham wrote in his journal about the young boy who had committed these atrocities at Arkham. Specifically where he says, "The boy did it all just to make a fool of me. My hopes, my beliefs. He's the monster, the one laughing in the dark, always laughing." So again, this issue is an extension or a missing piece to the origin of Absolute Joker, a piece Alfred did not have. And with this confirmation that there has only ever been one Jack Grimm, it does seem to suggest that there is something non-human about him. Is it just a manipulation of genetics, something tied to Darkseid, or something supernatural? We are going to find out at some point for sure. So that by itself is just an incredible addition to this mythology, and once again, just unbelievable writing by Scott Snyder. But here's the thing, that's not where the issue ends. As we see Jack Grimm leave his office, someone says to him, "What am I supposed to be looking at, sir?" And on the next page, we see that they are watching Absolute Batman destroy some armed criminals on a series of monitors. And Jack tells this person off screen, "You're watching our target." They call him the Batman. He's a former patient here, believe it or not, one who escaped, or so he thinks. The person he's talking to then says, "Are we playing with our food here? What's next?" To which Jack responds, "I have my plans." But this mystery person tells him, "If I'm being honest, sir, I've seen enough to see he's no real threat. I can handle him easy." But just as Jack is telling this person, "I know you can," He switches the view on the monitors to the containment cells for Kirk Langstrom and Pamela Isley. Absolute Joker then tells this person, but there are other friends I'd like to introduce him to in the meantime, as we see a stack of files for Kurt Langstrom Man-Bat, Pamela Isley Poison Ivy, Hugo Strange, Jonathan Crane Scarecrow, Basil Carlo Clayface, and Jervis Tetch Mad Hatter. Now we know that Absolute Poison Ivy is set to play a prominent role in Absolute Batman issue 17. And while this is the first reference for several of those villains in the Absolute universe, that is not the case for Absolute Poison Ivy or Absolute Man-Bat, because we actually got our first look at both the Isley experiment and the Langstrom experiment back in issue 10 as Bruce was trying to break out of ARK M. And as you can see, just like every other villain that's appeared so far, they are horrifying. Anyway, jumping back to the issue, Jack then says, so with that in mind, followed by clicking a button releasing every one of those villains in the files from their containment cells. This mystery person then says to Jack, none of this was necessary, but Grimm just replies, don't worry, you'll get your chance soon enough. Everything in due time. As we turn to the final page, as we see that the person he's been talking to is Absolute Deathstroke, who was first referenced in Absolute Batman issue 11 as Alfred was giving Bruce Bane's backstory. And in that issue, we learn that Deathstroke is one of ARK M's warriors created in the image of Bane alongside KG Beast and others. In fact, Deathstroke is the only one that Alfred mentions he knows too well. We're not sure yet what that means, but I'm willing to bet that we're about to find out. But that, my friends, wraps up this issue, which turned out to be so much more than we originally thought. And that's been the running theme with this title. Every time you think it can't get better, Scott Snyder just takes it up a notch. I mean, with this standard length ARK M issue, he not only gave us the origin of Absolute Arkham Asylum, but he also gives us this shocking addition to the origin of Absolute Joker, introduces us to Absolute Deathstroke paying off what he set up in issue 11, and reveals the entire next batch of Absolute villains that Batman is going to be facing as this next stage of his war against Joker unfolds. Altogether, this issue left me convinced that we have nothing but good things to look forward to from the Absolute universe in the coming year. But as always, we want to know what you guys think, so let us know what you thought of this issue and what it means for the next several months in the Absolute Batman title and beyond in the comments down below.